The iPhone 6 has beat both the iPhone 5 and 5S as a major upgrade. So will it be able to beat the iPhone 4S as a major upgrade? The iPhone 4 and 4S had the same dimensions, 115.5 by 58.6 by 9.3 millimeters, slightly heavier in the iPhone 4S from 137 grams to 140 grams, nothing noticeable, but it was bigger in the iPhone 6, 123.8 to 138.1, 58.6 to 67, and 7.6 to 6.9, and heavier, 112 to 129 grams. iPhone 6 is much less blocky than its predecessor, the iPhone 5S. It has a curved design, glass curves onto the sides, redesigned volume buttons, moved sleep wake button from the top to the side, back is fully aluminum, camera protrudes, and just practically everything is different. The iPhone 4S has practically the same design, only the antenna layout was changed to fix antenna gate, which we'll get to later. The camera from the 4 to the 4S goes from 5 megapixels to 8 megapixels, and also 720p video to 1080p video. The aperture is also wider on the 4S, going from f2.8 aperture to f2.4 aperture. It also introduces video stabilization. The iPhone 6 introduces focus pixels and doubles the frame rates for 1080p to 60 frames per second and for 720p to 240 frames per second. The front-facing camera is a bigger improvement on the 6 because it introduces burst mode. The iPhone 4 had the Apple A4 chip. It is a single-core 800 MHz, 512 megabytes of RAM. The iPhone 4S has a dual-core Apple A5 chip, also with 800 MHz and 512 megabytes of RAM. The iPhone 5S had the Apple A7 chip, which was a 64-bit chip, dual-core 1.3 GHz and 1 GB of RAM. The iPhone 6 changes that to 1.4 GHz, but still the same amount of RAM, 64-bit and dual-core. So the iPhone 6 sees a 25% increase in performance, but the iPhone 4S has double the performance. So from the 4S to this, from the 4 to the 4S is a bigger leap than from the 4S to the 6. Audio battery life stayed the same in the iPhone 4S, but increased from 40 to 50 in the iPhone 6. Video stayed at 10 from the 4 to the 4S, but increased to 11 in the iPhone 6. 3G talk time increased from 7 to 8 in the iPhone 4S, but increased from 10 to 14 in the iPhone 6. 3G browsing stayed at 6 hours in the iPhone 4S, but increased from 8 to 10 in the iPhone 6. LTE did not exist in the 4 or the 4S, but it doesn't really matter because it stayed the same in the iPhone 6, 10 hours. Wi-Fi has actually decreased in the 4S from 10 to 9, but then increased in the 6 from 10 to 11. And so has standby dramatically from 300 to 200 and stayed the same in the 6, so it is definitely a bigger improvement in the 6. In fact, the 4S is pretty much a downgrade in battery life. iPhone 6 introduces VoLTE, which allows you to make phone calls over your LTE network, allowing for a better call quality. iPhone 4S introduces a new 14.4 megabit per second HSDBA, twice the speed of the previous 7.2 megabit per second. The iPhone 4S also has 4 antennas instead of 3, and it dynamically switches between these antennas to allow for fewer dropped phone calls. The iPhone 4S, a bigger improvement in cellular, it also combined the GSM and CDMA into one phone, making it a world phone. The iPhone 4S also introduced Bluetooth 4.0, and the iPhone 6 introduced Wi-Fi 802.11 AC and Bluetooth 4.2 in a software update. The iPhone 4S introduced Siri, the virtual assistant in iOS, and the iPhone 6 introduced Apple Pay and an update to Touch ID, making it slightly ahead in the way of additional features. The iPhone 6 is ahead in design, display, battery, and slightly in additional features. The iPhone 4S didn't make changes to any of these except for the battery. And of the design and display, and the battery is actually slightly decreased. The iPhone 4S does win in terms of camera, processor, and cellular, but iPhone 6 also makes improvements to these things. So the 6 is, again, the bigger update than the 4S.